But when he said that, what did he say right before it? Rob Davis asked Rob Sermon, and in a whispering voice, okay, so he forgot his body cam was rolling. He said, hey, did you do anything inappropriate to it? Rob Sermon says, yeah. So you're talking about doing something inappropriate to Mostafa's car or the dash cam. You're doing something inappropriate to something belonging to Mostafa. Okay, I mean, this conversation took place while they were inspecting Mostafa's car.
I have that body cam.
Where they found brake failure. But here's the thing. He says, did you do something inappropriate to it? And the response from Rob Sermon was, yeah. And then right after, you want to say you have an idea that you should employ about this case, but it's going to require spending money, though. And then you have Mostafa in jail getting beat up almost to the point of death, where they beat him up and they take pictures of him naked.
And the prosecutions
naked,
are bringing
full of blood.
And the prosecution are bringing individuals from that club to testify as character witness. I mean, I have videos.
You're bringing the strippers that lap danced on the judge?
That's crazy. That is so disturbing. That is so disturbing. I mean, Mohammed, do me a favor.
That is crazy.
Go over to exhibits. I want to play the body cam where the officer is talking about pumping money into the Mostafa Al-Jazari case.
That's very disturbing. Internal affairs, they should be all over those officers. Okay, they should be all over them. And then Robert Drum, the first thing he asks Casey Stevens is, how is he holding up?
Well, let me ask you a question.
You mean the guy you falsified his statements, the guy you tampered with his dash cam, the guy you chopped up his vehicle, the guy you falsified his warrant to put him in jail?
Judge
that
Weimer,
guy, you're asking how he's holding up?
By the way, and we're going to go into that body cam of what you just talked about with investigator Robert Drum, the investigator that falsified Mostafa's statement, is talking to Casey Stevens, the defense attorney.
The guy that Robert Drum wants to make as incompetent.
They're conspiring to write Mostafa off as incompetent. So they beat him up inside the jail, and then they conspire, the defense attorney and the investigator that falsified the police report, to write him off as incompetent.
They want to do a mental evaluation.
And they're bringing out a specific individual.
You know, I remember specifically, because I was in court for a motion after that when Casey Stevens was fired. I specifically remember Sarah Sammy pushing Judge Weimer. She says she really wants to get this mental evaluation done of Mostafa after they beat him up. She wants to have a mental evaluation done on Mostafa. And we find out later that this was a conversation that took place between Robert Drum and Casey Stevens, where Robert Drum is pushing Casey Stevens, Mostafa's attorney. He's pushing him on a mental evaluation. And then Sarah Sammy in court is putting pressure on the judge to have this mental evaluation done even after Mostafa's lawyer is fired. And Judge Carol Weimer, to his credit, says, we're not going to do anything if the guy doesn't have an attorney. Let him get an attorney.
Because at that point, we already fired Casey Stevens.
And Judge Carol Weimer says, let him get an attorney, and that'll be up to his attorney if he wants to do a mental competency exam.
So, Mohammed, I have a body cam.
And Sarah Sammy was so angry. She was so angry that the judge did not give her a mental evaluation of Mostafa after they beat him up.
So you falsify his statements. You throw him in solitary confinement. You crush and stage his vehicle. You weaponize the children against him. You cut and mute his dash camera. And now you're conspiring to write him off as incompetent so he can't testify against the police department, against the police, that you falsified my case.
Unbelievable.
I lost my family in a fucking car accident. You're going to write him off as incompetent. So whatever he says, no one's going to listen. And by the way, if I didn't have the body cam to back up what I'm talking about, you're going to tell me there is no way that this could happen. But I have the body cam. And Mohammed,
I just want to say one thing about the mental evaluation. I remember this conversation came up with Casey Stevens, and he says, after we told him that Mostafa was beaten, he's scared to talk about it. He doesn't want, because of retaliation. I mean, he was told by a Sergeant Daniels that if you talk about this, we're going to kill you. Okay? He was threatened.
So a correctional officer
Hold on. Let me just make this point.
Yeah.
And Casey Stevens says, I don't believe it. I don't believe that he was beaten up. Even though we have photos from his visit 2 weeks after that he was swollen, that he had bruising all over his body. But I'll tell you this. Casey Stevens says, I want to do a mental competency evaluation of Mostafa.
To discredit whatever Mostafa is talking about.
Okay. And I told Casey Stevens at the time, I have it recorded, by the way. I told him, okay, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. We're going to bring in our own expert to do the mental evaluation for Mostafa. Okay? And when I gave him a name of a doctor that is not connected to the county, he calls back and says, no, we're not going to follow the person you chose. I have somebody that I want to bring in. And if you're not going to pay me $3,500 for it, then we'll have the county do it. Which doesn't make any sense because the doctor that I gave him actually does mental evaluations for jails, specifically for jails. Okay? So why is Casey Stevens so concerned about who's doing this mental evaluation? Okay? And were they trying to bring somebody that was going to basically sign on the dotted line like we've seen all throughout Mostafa's case? So either Casey Stevens brings in his own expert mental evaluator, okay, that basically he's going to say whatever Casey Stevens wants him to say. He says, if you're not going to pay me $3,500 for my choice, then we're going to have to go with somebody from the county. And basically they're going to bring in somebody like Gene Maya, who's the medical examiner, who basically signs on the dotted line.
Before Mostafa was beaten up, before Mostafa was talking about they beat me up.
You don't find that odd?
Don't you have a recording with Casey Stevens that says Mostafa is competent? We don't need to get any mental help.
Actually, I have a voicemail.
He's good. I talked to him. You have the voicemail?
I have the voicemail.
Can you pull that up real quick?
It's on my other phone.
And while you do that, how long is it going to take you to pull it up?
10 seconds, I haven't.
Do me a favor. Go ahead and pull that up. While you do, I'm going to play this body cam.
Okay.
Okay? And then when you come back, I want to play this body cam for you because it is so disturbing. It's one thing to say what you're saying because it becomes your word against the police department, your word against the defense attorney, your word against that specific police officer, your word against the prosecution. But I have the body cam that show what Casey Stevens did, what investigator Robert Drum did. They're sitting there conspiring against Mostafa. They're sitting there attempting to write Mostafa as incompetent. I mean, you falsify his case. Correctional officer would beat him up inside the jail. And then when he talks about it, your own defense attorney is conspiring with the police officer that falsified your statement, your case, to write you off as incompetent. I mean, that's disturbing. Let's watch the body cam.
How's Moses doing? How's Moses doing?
I don't think he's doing very well.
How'd that competency thing come back?
Haven't gotten it back yet. They're taking forever to get to it. Because I think I filed that a month ago. They finally got, at first they were wanting to continue the case so they could get it done. And then, like the same day in the afternoon, they finally got somebody. They didn't have anybody to do it. I think somebody just bureaucratic dropped the ball somewhere for a little bit. But it's my guess is it's likely to be continued. They got Susan Frank is the psychologist who's doing it, and she in my experience tends to be very last minute on shit. You know, you're getting stuff the night before type stuff. So that wouldn't surprise me. She ended up needing more time. We needed it.
So you have, this is Casey Stevens. Let's see if I can circle who. This is Casey Stevens. That's the defense attorney. Mostafa's defense attorney. That's the prosecutor, Christian Mallet. And in the background, you have the independent expert who's scanning the vehicle. By the way, this vehicle has already been crushed and staged by the police department. The vehicle looks one way. It looks, we have pictures. It looks one thing, and then inside the police department, it looks completely different. Crushed in, chopped up. They're staging the vehicle. And we have pictures where they're actually cutting into the vehicle inside the police department. They're staging and crushing the vehicle. And now you have the independent expert who's scanning a crushed and staged vehicle. How does that make any sense? What are you scanning the vehicle for?